A good day to everyone. My name is Arcel Jaives Pidillon. We are Group 2 and today we are going to discuss three lessons, which are Lesson number 3, Getting Started on Visual Basics, Lesson number 4, Customizing Visual Basic 6 IDE, and Lesson number 5, Basic Controls. But first, let me introduce the members of this group. First, we have Insignia Ahelio III, Espidillon Arzel Joy, Roales Aaron Nathaniel, Petilos Kyle Christian, Enerokit Gabriel, De Vega Richard Jr., and lastly, Noah Ryan. Now, let's proceed to the lesson 3, which is getting started with Visual Basic 6. So, Visual Basic 6 is an IDE or Integrated Development Environment, which is a software that helps programmers to code efficiently. Visual Basic 6 is an example of an IDE. However, the main difference of Virtual Basic 6 from other IDEs is that it has a simplistic approach in terms of its user interface. Now, we are going to discuss about how to create a project with Virtual Basic 6. First, open the software Virtual Basic. Next, click on New Project. Next, click on Standard EXE, then press OK. Next, the IDE has different parts with different functions. In the middlemost part, we have the GUI designer window. On the left, we have the toolbox, which has objects that can help us in coding, which are the text boxes, command buttons, check boxes, and WinSock controls. Next, we can see the object properties pane on the right and the menu bar on top, and just below the menu bar is the toolbar. After knowing the parts of the IDE, we can have a better experience by setting it up. First, to avoid sloppiness, do this. First, go to Tools. Next, go to Options. Click Require Variable Declaration, then go to the Environment. Click on Prompt to save changes, then click OK. Form layout is pretty useless, so we should close it. Next, in order to have handy functions closer to our reach, this is what we should do. First, right-click on the toolbar and click on Customize. Click on the Commands tab under Categories. Select Edit. Scroll down in the middle of Commands tab until you see Indent, Outdent, Comment Block, and Uncomment Block. Next, we should drag it one by one and place it right next to the Start and Stop buttons. And then we can close the tab. Next, for changing properties of objects, choose the object you wish to change the property, then change it using the Properties pane on the right side of the interface. Next, we have Mr. Ryan Nowhere to discuss about using controls.
Good day, everyone. I'm Ryan Nower. I will be the one who will discuss the topic using control. How to start and run a program in Visual Basic. So let's start on using control.
Placing control on a form. Click on the box representing the control that you want in your program. Then, click the left mouse down on a space on the form, then drag to another spot and release the left mouse button. Importing extra control. Right-click somewhere in the toolbox and select Components. In that window, you can select a file which contains your control that you want to add in your form. Underline letter. When you press the Alt button in many programs, it will show a little lines underneath certain letters of menu items. If you then press on your keyboard the letter which corresponds to one of the underlined, the letters on the menu item is selected. Running a program. Pressing Start button or pressing Play button or pressing F5 on your keyboard will run your program. Stopping a program by clicking X button on the top right of the window app.
So for the next topic, that will explained by Mr. Petilos.
Today everyone, so for the next topic is compiling a program, getting into our source code, and setting project properties in Visual Basic. So for compiling a program in Visual Basic 6, you need a full retail copy of Visual Basic, not the Learning Edition, which won't create an exe file. In the Visual Basic 6 IDE, go to File, make project name.exe. Compiling the process of turning source code into an exe is simpler in Visual Basic 6 compared to languages like C++. Ensure your program's dependencies such as the Visual Basic 6 runtime library MSVVM6.dll for Visual Basic 6 programs are available on any computer where it will run. Additional DLL or OCX files must be provided to others who want to use your program. For maximum portability, rely on the functionality you implement in your program. So for the next is getting into a source code. In getting into a source code, right-click Form 1 and choose View Code or double-click the form. You'll find the default code structure which option explicit and private subform. Subform load. As a default subroutine for the forms load event. As you can see here, you can see the option explicit private subform load and ed sub. Next slide please. So for the next is setting project properties. In setting project properties, to configure project properties, access them through Project 1 properties in the top menu and explore and adjust options as required. It's crucial for gaining fundamental grasp of the Visual Basics IDE. And that's all. So for the next reporter is Aaron Nathaniel Roales.
So, good day, everyone. I'm Aaron Nathaniel Ruales, and I will be reporting the lesson 4, which is customizing Visual Basic 6. Next slide. Next. So, from the word itself, customizing, in this lesson, we would learn how to optimize our Visual Basic 6 so we can code easier. So, in general, customizing the VB environment can be done by clicking tools on the VB menu bar, then selecting options. So, in this picture, just like yung nakasulat, we would click tools and then pag lumabas yung options, i-click natin yan. So next. So this causes the tab dialog box shown beside to be displayed. Each of the tabs of the options dialog box will be discussed in turn. So again, after mo maklik ng options, may mga tabs na lalabas. So ayan ang i-discuss namin sa mga susunod na slides. So next. So the first tab is the editor tab. So in the editor tab of the options dialog box shown beside, make sure that the required variable declaration is checked. The VB default is unchecked. This is the only setting change that is strongly recommended for everybody to make. Checking this option forces BB to place a line of code reading option explicit at the beginning of each new module, which in turn forces you to explicitly declare all your variables, just like what you do in most programming languages, such as C++, Java, Pascal, and etc. So leaving this option unchecked, I let's revert back to what we call the old days, where you don't declare variable, which is an example of poor programming practice. So we would leave all other items on the editor tab checked, with maybe the exception of auto syntax check. So why? Whenever you are coding and you move your cursor off of the line that contains a syntax error, the text on that line changes to color red. Yun ay kapag hindi naka-effect ang auto syntax check. Now, if auto syntax check is in effect, a message box will with a cryptic error message pops up, and then you have to click the OK button to get rid of the box and continue coding. So medyo hassle siya. So that's why kailangan naka-turn off yung auto syntax check dahil kailangan pa natin i-disable yung message na lalabas. So next, the editor format tab. So the only thing commonly changes on the editor format tab shown beside is the font. The default font for the editor is Courier, which is fine. So Courier and Fixies are two of the very monospaced fonts available. So many code editors or coders and terminals use monospace fonts quite exclusively. This is because scrolling through hundreds of codes lines to look for a specific character or symbol becomes significantly easier when a monospace font is used. So for the next reporter, um, let me introduce you Leo Insigne.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Aaron Novales. And I will now report about the general tab. For the general tab, and we can change the width and height of the grid units, each to 60. Changing these settings to 60 will allow the user to have a finer degree of control when designing forms. This setting has to do with the spacing of the dots on the form, design time. The dots on the form act as a guide when you are placing elements on the form to design your GUI. The general tab is responsible for the change of width and height of the grid units
which serves as the guide for the users in placing their elements to design their GUI. Having more width and height on your forms will allow you to have more finer degree in designing your forms, while having less area will have an opposite effect in designing your forms. Next is the docking tab. The docking tab is where you specify which windows in the IDE you would like to dock. The docking tab helps the user which windows will be docked and floated. The docked windows are checked while the floated windows are unchecked. And the next is the environment tab. The environment tab allows you to choose whether you save changes, prompt to save changes, or don't save changes when you run your program. It is recommended that you choose the save changes option so that your program will automatically be saved if you run your program. If you choose the don't save change option, your work might be lost if your program crashes. Next is the advanced tab. The advanced tab is where you can specify whether or not you want the SDI or single document interface, development environment, or MDI or multiple document interface. SDI applications allow only one open document frame window at a time, while MDI applications allow multiple document frame windows to be open in the same instance of an application. Once you have all set your desired options on all the tabs, you can click OK. And take note, if you change from MDI to SDI development environment or vice versa of it, the following message will appear, and once you click OK, after you click OK, you need to close and restart Visual Basic 6 and redo your desired docking changes for the changes to take effect, because there is a bug on the app. That's all. Now for the lesson 5, Mr. Richard De Vega will take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Insigne. Now I will discuss the Lesson 5 basic controls.
Command button. So, open lang natin yung application. Yan. So, sa left side, makikita natin dito yung command button. Yan. Dito tayo mamaya maglalagay ng code. So, mag-add lang tayo ng label, text box. Sa right side, makikita natin yung iba't ibang properties ng command button, ng text box, at ng label. So, para mapalitan natin yung background color, pupunta lang tayo dito sa back color para papalitan natin ng color. Ayan, papalitan natin yung yellow. So, ano ba ang pinagkaiba ng text box at label? So, most common ang function ng text box ay ginagamit siya for input, while the label is for output. Yan. Paano ba mapalitan or maalis yung label 1 at text 1? So, pupunta lang tayo sa properties, then caption, para mapalitan or maalis natin yung nakalagay. So, sa text naman, punta tayo sa text to change the text. And punta natin type your name. And sa command naman, lalagyan natin siya, papalitan natin siya ng enter. Yan, and let's try to change the font and style. Yan. So, subukan natin siya i-run. Start. So, ayan. Makikita nyo na, or mapapansin nyo na, hindi tayo pwede mag-type sa label box dahil na sinabi ko nga kanina, siya ay for output and itong text box for input. So, pwede tayo mag-type. So, try natin na mag-code. Once na maglagay ako ng name sa text box at click ko yung enter, lalabas dito yung nilagyan natin na code. So, lalagay lang ng label 1, caption is equal hello plus text 1 text, and so subukan natin i-run or start. So once na i-click ko to, after ko maglagay ng name, lalabas dapat yung hello plus yung name na ilalagay natin dito. So Third Junior, yan, try natin. So ayan, tama yung code na ginawa natin, diba? Marami pang function itong command and marami pa tayong pwedeng gawin or ilagay na code. Ito ay isa sa madaling example. Ayan. So common command button properties. So these are some of the common command button properties. So cancel property designates a command button as the form's cancel option. Pressing the escape key while the form is active trigger this button's click event, allowing users to cancel. Caption property sets the text display on the command button. It allows you to provide a clear and concise label for the button, making it user-friendly and informative. Default property designates a command button as a default option within a form. Pressing the enter key while the form is active will activate this button's click event, providing a convenient way to trigger the most common action. Enable property determines whether the command button is active or disabled. When set to true, the button can be clicked and triggers its associated code. Setting it to false makes the button appear dimmed and unclickable. Style. The property allows you to choose between 0 push button and 1 toggle button style for your command button, altering its visual appearance and behavior. Tooltip text. It is used to provide a brief description or hint when the user hovers their mouse over the button. It enhances user interaction by offering contextual information. Visible property controls the visibility of the command button on your form. Setting it to true makes the button visible, while false hides it from the user interface. So these common command button properties are the building blocks of user interface design and functionality in Visual Basic 6. So
The next reporter is Kit Enero.
Thank you, Mr. De Vega. So, I'm here to report labels. Next slide. So, labels hold the primary text that appears on a form. Often programmers use labels to place titles in forms and to label text boxes so that users know what to type into the text box. So, as you can see here, yung blank na white yung text box. Tapos, yung labels nila is first name, middle initial, and surname. Aside from being used as title for forms and text boxes, labels can also be used for outputs that we put inputs here in the text boxes. So, pag inilagay mo dito yung input sa tatlong to, tapos pinindot mo yung command button, lalabas na yung output mo dito sa gray box, which is label number 4. So, labels can also present problems if they receive text that is too large for label boundaries. Putting captions in labels seems easy until you think about the effects that can occur if the label is too large. So, the text might not fit inside the label, and Visual Basic takes the text. Set the auto size properly to false if you want the label to remain the size and not resize automatically to fit the caption property value. If the code assigns long text, the label might not hold the entire caption, but the label will not expand and get in the way of other controls. So, pag naglalagay tayo ng label, meron siyang properties na pwede mong i-adjust for, kunyari, yung label mo is naturally white siya. Pwede mo siya gawing gray. Tapos, pwede mo rin palitan yung size and font. Which I will show on an example later. Next slide.
So, ito na yung sample. Kailangan natin. So, ito siya. So, maglalagay tayo ng label for yung parang ano lang, to label the text boxes. Tapos, ito yung text box. Yung paglalagyan ng input. Tapos, ito yung label number 4. Dito lalabas yung output na galing sa values na input natin dito sa text boxes. So, itong label 1, i-edit natin yung properties niya. So, yung caption, gagawin natin siyang first name. First name. Tapos, yung label 2, gagawin natin siyang middle initial. Tapos, sa label 3, gagawin natin siyang surname. Tapos dito, tatanggalin natin itong text para clean tingnan. Tapos, command button. Sa command button natin ilalagay yung mismo command para gumaling label 4. So, kailangan natin ilagay yung label 4, yung output, tapos caption, letters, equals yung kung ano yung gusto natin i-input. So, sabihin natin hello. Name is tapos ilalagay natin yung text number 1. Tapos ito na yung mga values na yung mga text box na pag-inputan natin ng mga values. Text. Dot. So, okay na yan. Next, ayusin naman natin tong label 4. Pwede natin siya tanggalan ng caption para malinis. Tapos, yung back color, iset natin sa, let's say, color blue. Yan. Tapos, back na. Ay, ba? Ito, medyo lighter siya. Tapos, dito yung sa font. Meron siyang oblique or bold. Tapos, takyan natin yung font size ko. So, i-run ko na siya. Tapos, lalagay ko na yung values. So, hindi natin yung pag-group ko. Ryan. viewer. So, pag kinamad mo siya, lalabas na dito yung wait lang natin space para yan. Pag kinamad ko siya, sa label 4 na lalabas yung output mo mismo. So, that's it. Thank you.
Next is the common label properties. Yung example, next slide. So here is the example of common label properties. First is alignment. Yung alignment yung nagde-determine whether yung label mo is left justified, centered, or right justified. So yung auto size is yung nag-enlarge ng label size properties when true. Back color specifies the label's background color. Back style determines whether the background shows through the label or if the label covers up its background text, graphics, and color. Border style determines whether a single line border appears around the label. Caption holds the text that appears on the label. Enabled determines whether the label is active. So yung font is yung pag-iiba mo ng font style and size. For color holds the color of the label's text, so yung color ng font. Height holds the height of the label's outline and grids. Depth holds the number of tweets from the label's left edge to the form window's left edge. Mouse pointer determines the shape of the mouse cursor when the user moves the mouse over the label. Tab index specifies the order of the label in the focus order. Although labels cannot receive focus, they can be part of the focus order. Tooltip text. Tooltip text holds the text that shows as a tooltip at runtime. Top holds the number of tweets from the label's top edge to form Windows top edge. Visible determines whether the label appears or is hidden from the user. Width holds the width of the label in tweets, and word wrap determines whether the label expands to fit whatever text appears in the caption. So, yung next topic po ay elements of a Visual Basic interference to be reported by Richard Rivera.
Thank you, Kitanero. So, next slide. So we have 8 elements of a Visual Basic interference. So toolbar provides quick access to the generally used commands in the programming environment. Menu bar displays the commands you use to build your application. Form, it serves as a window that customizes the interface of your application. And toolbox are all graphical objects you can design and place on a form as list boxes, buttons, labels, and so on. And properties window is the property setting for the selected form or control. So we have a two box, which is object box display the name of the object for which you can set properties. And setting box allows you to edit the setting for the property selected in the properties list. So next is reporter.
Next is the code window. The code window allows you to write, display, and edit Visual Basic source code or your program. So the code window has 3 elements. The first one is object box. The object box displays the name of the selected object, such as command, label, form, text box, combo box, frame, etc. Next is the procedure box. The procedure box lists all events recognized by Visual Basic for the form and control displayed in the object box. And finally, the source code. The source code is the Visual Basic statements that are written in the code window. And that's all. So that's all for the report of Group 2. Thank you for listening.